Since you only have 6 hours to solve the murder, you must use every minute wisely. Pay close attention to details. How someone says something maybe is as important as what they say. No clue is too small to consider. No clue too small to help you solve the case. As you accumulate facts, try to eliminate suspects. Then pursue those who remain. Although it takes time, it's a good idea to interview most of the suspects up front. This will give you a more complete picture of the murder and the motives that play a part in Brett Penance's death. Remember to review your notes before calling a press conference. The press can ask tough questions and stupid questions too. You have to be prepared for both. One last thing. Always be on the lookout for a suspect who reveals something they shouldn't know. Now, good luck.
A body washed up today on Surfside Beach, a local surfer named Brett Penance. He was found by a woman out walking her dog at dawn. Yesterday afternoon, around 4, Penance told his mother he was heading out to surf the big swells coming in. Janet Penance reported her son missing at 8:30 p.m. last night. His car was found where he had been seen surfing earlier in the day. We talked to some of his surfing buddies who were with him on Friday. They all quit early because the waves were too rough. So at first we thought Penance had drowned. That was until we found the bullet hole through the left side of his chest. Now our question is, who put it there? Who would want to? Penance was a bit of a local hero, one of those golden kids who does no wrong. He was a champion surfer on his way to Stanford University this fall. Handsome, popular. He even had a full academic scholarship. A kid like this is not your usual murder target. Several of Penance's friends think it has to do with his involvement in the fight over the condo development at Fossil Cove. They all say Brett was vocally opposed to it and was fighting back hard. The permit battle has practically split the town in two. The county coroner thinks the death was instantaneous. His friends reportedly left him at about 20 after 5. A little kid who lives on the beach thinks she heard a shot sometime just before 6. We'll know more when the autopsy is complete. We've impounded the victim's car, Detective. We've also sealed off his room at home in case there's any clues there. It's a very clever murder, boss. Whoever did it is going to be difficult to catch. Your name and relation to the deceased?
My name is Braxton Smith, and I knew Brett from the fight to prevent the Kinsella development at Fossil Cove.
You were on the same side?
Yes. My husband's family place, the Smith farm, is right next to the Gibbs farm. Brett and I got involved. We became friends when we both joined the fight to try to stop it.
Miss Smith, there's some talk that you had become personally involved with Brett Penance.
It's idle talk. People just say that because my husband works in the city and I'm alone here with the kids all week. Look, Brett and I were spending a lot of time together, and we did become close friends.
When did you last see the victim alive?
At the permit hearing 2 nights ago.
Who would want to kill someone like Brett Penance?
Someone who's mean and sick. Someone like Frederick Kinsella.
Can you tell me your whereabouts last night between 5 and 7?
Yeah, I left the house at around 4:30 to run some errands. I went to the vegetable stand and the post office. And then I went to my health club to work out, and I left in time to catch my husband's flight at 6:45.
Thank you. We'll be in touch if we have more questions.
I hope you find his killer.
Your name and occupation.
Frederick Kinsella. I develop real estate. I'm doing a project out here at South Fork, at the Fossil Cove Beach.
Mr. Kinsella, what can you tell me about Brett Penance?
Nothing. He was one of a number of people that were trying to fight my development. I never spoke with the man.
According to my information, over 700 people have signed a petition against Fossil Cove. In a town of only 2,300 registered voters. Do you call that a small number?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Kinsella, there have been a number of unfortunate accidents suffered by people who have opposed your developments in the past. I believe one woman actually disappeared and is presumed dead. Do you find it odd that Mr. Penance has also been a victim of foul play?
Well,
My client does not have to answer that question. That's a leading question, Ms. Farewell. Frederick Kinsella has not been indicted.
Yes, that's correct. I only wanted Mr. Kinsella's opinion. Mr. Kinsella, can you tell me your whereabouts between 5 and 7 p.m. last night?
Go ahead.
Of course. I was at my Manhattan office till about 5:30. My driver, Paul, then took me to an opening of an art gallery, the Turner Lewis Gallery. Stayed there for about an hour, whereupon Paul took me to the South Street Seaport, where I caught a seaplane out here to South Fork for the weekend.
Thank you. That will be all for now.
My pleasure, Detective.
Your name?
I'm Janet Penance, Brett's mom. He left the house yesterday around 4, saying that he was going to the beach and that he had an errand after that. He said he'd be home around 7. He's never late, and when he didn't come home by 8:30, I got nervous. That's when I called the police. You know, I can't help but think that this has something to do with that fight over the development at Fossil Cove Beach. Everyone, the developer, the owner of the land, the builder, even the head of the city council, they were furious with Brett. It means a lot of jobs. You know, real estate's been way down. I know he loved the wetlands there, and this meant a lot to him, but I wish he'd never gotten involved in the whole mess.
Ms. Penance, we're keeping your son's car down at the police station for further investigation. We'd also like to seal off his bedroom and take a good look around.
Yeah, I understand. Please.
We'll need to talk to Mr. Penance.
You can't. He's dead. He died when Brett was 3.
Is there anything else you can think of about yesterday? Anything that sticks in your mind that might help us?
He was carrying a manila envelope. It probably had something to do with Fossil Cove. He was always carrying papers related to the case.
Just to remind you, Detective, you've used 1 hour and you have 5 left.
My name is Carlos Foster. I was out surfing with Brett yesterday before he was killed. was just a normal day. You know, we went out, it was surfing heavy swell. We got out of the cars, put our suits on. Randy Howland was with us. Me and Randy didn't stay long. Brett said, go on ahead. He wanted to catch a few more waves. Beach was empty when we left.
Is there anyone you know who might have had a reason to kill him?
I know everybody's gonna say that it was somebody from Kinsella's side, but there's a wild card you might want to know about. It's this woman in town. She's a middle-aged lady, 34, 35. Her name's Braxton Smith. And she kind of had a thing for Brett. She started calling him all the time, inviting him over for dinner. Her old man's some heavy player on Wall Street. He only comes out on weekends. I caught her once up at Surfside watching Brett surf through some binoculars. I ragged him really bad about it. But it really bothered him, you know, you could tell. He told me something. He made me swear not to tell anybody. I don't think he talked to anybody else about it. I want to tell you, but I just don't want Mrs. Penance to find out.
We'll be as discreet as we possibly can.
He slept with her once, with Braxton Smith. He said it was almost an accident. He said she was a really good person and that he felt sorry for her. I think she thought it was going to be the beginning of some big affair or something. But she got kind of upset when he told her that wasn't what it was about. She wanted to leave her husband for him. Anyway, I dropped Brett off at his house last week after a party. Must have been about 1 a.m. And on the other side of the street, I see Braxton parked in a car. She kind of ducked down when I went by, but I saw her anyway. Weird, huh? I told Brett about it, but he didn't say much. I don't know. I don't think she would, you know, I don't know. Love makes people strange. I think I'm the only person that knows about this. Please don't tell his mom. I don't want her to find out.
My name's Randy Howland. I'm a good friend of Brett's. We were surfing together yesterday afternoon, but I had to leave early to get to work. The storm was coming, and the waves were a little sketchy anyway. So Carlos Foster, the other guy with us, we bailed. Brett said he wanted to hang, and it's about 5:30. He was solo. One thing's for sure, whoever killed Brett knew his surfing habits. He was the best. He'd surf everything. So they knew he'd be out there with a swell like that.
Is there anything else?
I hate to turn in a brother, but there's someone you should check out. His name's Jason Turley. He's totally trippy. He's an okay surfer, but he's got some damage. About 2 weeks ago, a bunch of us were out at Surfside. The waves were sweet. We were heading in at sundown. Brett and I came over the dunes. It's where the cars were. Jason was wailing on his girlfriend. She was screaming and crying, and he was thrashing her as hard as he could. Brett got so smoked, he beat the shit out of him right there. Probably saved Andrea's life. Anyway, Jason got so pissed off. He's going around saying he had wasted Brett. Said he was just chilling till he got his chance. Way freaky if you ask me. That's all I can say. I just hope you find the guy, whoever it is.
Your name and occupation?
Jason Turley, I surf.
You surf for a living?
No, but I'm taking the summer off before I go back to school.
Did you know Brett Penance?
Yeah, and we weren't the best of friends, as you probably heard. That's why you're asking me questions, right? You think I killed him, don't you?
Mr. Turley, someone has stepped forward to say that you had recently threatened Brett's life. We have to investigate any such reports.
Yeah, well, I can tell you one thing. Brett had no business getting involved in something that was between me and Andrea. It was our problem and we were dealing with it. Man, Penance was such a pain sometimes. Always trying to save the world, acting like he was God. Like that permit fight, right? What a joke.
My understanding, Mr. Turley, was that you were assaulting your girlfriend, and that Brett Penance stopped you.
Hey, if I was assaulting my girlfriend, how come she didn't call the police? Huh? How come we're still going out? That was Penance for you, always sticking his nose into where it didn't belong. Frankly, I'm not surprised this came down for him.
Mr. Turley, where were you between 5 and 7 p.m. last night?
I was on my way back here from the city. I had to go in and see the doc for the planner's ward on my heel. Next question?
That will be all for now. We'll be in touch once we've checked your alibi.
Sounds fine to me. Stay cool, babe.
My name is Amanda Armstrong. I went to school with Brett. I was a year behind him. I know you need help solving his murder, and there's something I've got to tell you. I was at my friend's house the other day, Allie Rhodes. Her mom, Mrs. Rhodes, is the head of the town board of selectmen, and she's really for this Fossil Cove development, the one that everyone's so worked up about. Anyway, when I was there, we overheard her on the phone in the kitchen. I heard her say to someone, if that Penance snot doesn't watch it, someone's going to kill him. Well, Allie got real embarrassed and said her mother always says things like that, especially when she's talking to her boyfriend, Al. I kind of forgot all about it, but then this happened.
Excuse me, there are 4 hours remaining. Have you tried retracing the victim's route?
Your name and occupation.
Al Ciprano. I'm a contractor here in South Fork.
Mr. Soprano, what was your relationship to Brett Penance?
Well, we were on opposite sides of the battle for the building permit for Fossil Cove. I'm the contractor on that project. He seemed like a nice kid. I'm sorry about what happened to him.
Are you aware that on 3 separate occasions, people opposed to Frederick Kinsella developments have been injured or have disappeared?
No, well, Mr. Kinsella's a tough businessman, but he's not that kind of guy. He's not going to get involved with stuff like that. Not him, not funny stuff.
Do you know anyone else who might want Brett Penance dead?
Well, not in particular. I think tempers have got a little too heated in this whole thing, if you ask me. It's just business.
Has your temper ever gotten out of hand, Mr. Soprano?
What do you mean?
We have a report that you told Brett Penance he would get himself killed if he didn't watch out.
I'm not proud of that. I shouldn't have said it. I felt badly afterwards. I almost called Brett to apologize. But I didn't kill him.
Mr. Soprano, what were you doing yesterday between 5 and 7 p.m.?
I was over at the site on Ways Lane till about 5:45. Then I stopped at Bert's Burgers for a bite. It was raining like hell then. And then I stopped off to examine a paint job we're doing over on Portico Road. That must have been about 6:20. And from there, I took the paint crew over for some beers over at the summer house, and then from there, I was home with the wife and kids at about 8 o'clock.
Thank you for your time. We'll be in touch if we have more questions.
Okay, if I'm not here, I'll be over at the site.
Kinsella's alibi checks out. Several people saw him at the Turner Lewis Gallery in Manhattan between 5:30 and 6:20. The seaplane pilot corroborates that he left Manhattan with Kinsella at around 6:40 and flew straight to South Fork. That also checks out with FAA records. The seaplane pilot mentioned that despite the bumpy air, Kinsella requested a flyby over Surfside Beach. Since the Gibbs' farm is over a mile away, I'd like to know what he was looking for. Kinsella himself couldn't have killed Brett Penance, but I wouldn't rule him out as connected to the murder in some way. There are some interesting gaps in Al Ciprano's alibi. He did go by Bert's Burger's drive-up window, but it was at 5:15, not more towards 6, like he reported. The girl at the window who served him said he only ordered a Coke and then drove out as soon as he paid. Two different members of the paint crew report Ciprano showing up at 6:40, not 6:20. After that, he checked on their work and then took them out for some beers. That part of his testimony appears to stick. None of them noticed him acting oddly. But this does leave almost an hour and a half of his time unaccounted for, very near the time of the victim's death. Braxton Smith was seen at the post office when she says she was near 5 o'clock. She checked into her health club at 5:15, or so she wrote. I checked the log, and several people above her had signed in as late as 6 o'clock. Also, I can't find any positive IDs until after 6. One member thinks he saw her lifting weights, but he isn't sure. She was at the airport to meet her husband's flight, which arrived 10 minutes late at 6:55 due to weather. This leaves a hole near the time of death. There's no real way to confirm this alibi. The suspect's doctor's appointment in Manhattan was at 10 in the morning. He left by 11. He was seen by the doorman at his parents' building at 1022 Fifth Avenue a half an hour later. That's the last time anyone can verify his whereabouts. I checked at the garage where he keeps his car, and they said he called for it early, around 8, and never returned it. He's missing for most of the day and could have easily made it out to South Fork in time to commit murder. He's also apparently excellent on the sea with boats.
Detective, you're halfway there. The autopsy should be ready by now, shouldn't they? It's your chief speaking. Only 2 hours left to solve this murder. The Chamber of Commerce is having a conniption fit about this. They say murder is all wrong for their vacation image. You're telling me.
There are 4 different sets of fresh fingerprints on the dashboard, steering wheel, and seat that have all been identified as belonging to Brett or his close friends. There's a drop of blood on the driver's floor mat, positively matched to the victim. It appears to be at least several days old. A t-shirt and towel belonging to the victim are on the passenger side floor. The glove compartment contains 3 condoms, surfboard wax, a copy of the zoning bylaws for the town of South Fork, and a copy of Brett's auto insurance and registration. The trunk contains the other running shoe, an empty jar of peanut butter, a spare tire, and a toolkit, and an old blanket. All fresh fingerprints in the area belong to the victim. There is no sign of a manila envelope or the evidence he was set to deliver to the reporter from New York. There are 2 sets of fresh tire prints parked near the victim's car. Neither match those belonging to the cars of the friends he was surfing with. We found a videotape in the bottom of Brett's laundry hamper. I think you'll find it very interesting, Detective.
Okay, my name is Brett Penance. I'm making this tape because there's valuable information that people have got to know about, and I'm afraid I may not get to tell it. I hope I come home tonight and can find this tape and where I've hidden it. If I'm able to, it means that the necessary information has made it to the right hands. But if I don't come back, it means that the information hasn't been delivered. Which is why I'm making this tape. It's Friday, May 23rd, around 3 o'clock, and I have a meeting this evening at 6 with a reporter named James Holt. He works for the New York World Herald. I will be delivering documents to Holt that show the intentional tampering with hydrology test results at the Fossil Cove wetlands. These results were modified in favor of an application made by Frederick Kinsella Partners. The results were falsified by their chief engineer, Mr. Amos Johnson. The materials that I will be delivering to Holt tonight contain the actual hydrology test results, with notes made in Kinsella's handwriting that indicate which figures he wanted changed. These new results diminish the size and extent of the wetlands by 45%. And according to the zoning bylaws of South Fork, Kinsella claims he has rights to build 125 houses and condominiums on Stella Gibbs' farm. According to my calculations, based on the actual hydrology test results, Kinsella has rights to build 11. The real heroine of this story is the person who risked her life to provide me with copies and the documents. I promise never to reveal her name, and I won't, but she really deserves most of the credit. Now my task is to deliver the documents. One will be given to Holt, James Holt, later this evening, and the other copy can be found buried under a large granite rock in my mother's side garden. Sorry, Mom, that I disturbed the plants and made a mess, but, you know, it's all in the name of the planet, I guess. And I'm really sorry, Mom, about the subterfuge and the runaround. I just knew you'd get really worried if I told you, and I didn't want to get you involved. I've been followed. Someone tried to run me off the road and kill me. And it's a mess. But I really love you, Mom, and, you know, I don't know, you've just been the best. So, anyway, I gotta go.
We indeed just found the envelope that Brett Penance refers to, exactly where he described. The proper authorities are being notified. Now all we need to find is the killer.
Like I told you, Brett left the house around 4. He said he had a few errands to run before going down to surf, and that he'd be home by 7. He didn't say what his errands were.
My name is Poppy Cleveland. I was riding my bike down Summer Street when Brett drove by and waved. It was 4:10. I had just finished a babysitting job, so I had just looked at my watch. Brett was headed toward the center of town.
Brett stopped by for $5 in gas a little after 4. I know because he asked the time. It was
4:30.
He and I were chatting about the storm that was coming in.
he said it was surfing weather. There's one thing for sure, is that boy loved to surf.
My name is Ellen Webster. I was the librarian on duty at 415 when Brett Penance stopped by. He returned a copy of the new biography of J. Edgar Hoover. He took out a copy of a novel called Vindication about the life of Mary Wollstonecraft.
Brett met his friends here at 10 minutes to 5. It's only about 10 minutes from the gas station in normal traffic. What he did with that extra 10 minutes, we're not quite sure. It may have just been the weekend traffic that slowed him down, or he may have stopped someplace else. According to his buddies, they were in the water within 5 minutes.
Listen, there's only 1 hour left. Use your time carefully. From here on, every minute counts.
Your name and occupation?
Oh, I'm Stella Gibbs. I used to farm before my husband Owen died. Now, that was 5 years ago. Now I just keep a vegetable garden. Well, potato farming's too much work for a woman alone, and none of the kids are interested in farming.
Mrs. Gibbs, what can you tell me about Brett Penance?
That he was a young whippersnapper with a too high opinion of himself. Now, he was fighting the sale of my land, trying to stop the permit from going through.
You own the land at Fossil Cove?
Yes. Well, Fred Kinsella's given me a nice down payment, but the sale isn't final till the permit's in place. And let me tell you one thing. People who are 18 years old have no right trying to tell a body what they can or can't do with the land they have worked all their lives. Now, nobody can. And that's the trouble with all these folks from out of town. They think that once they're here, nothing else has got the right to change.
But Brett Penance was born here.
Well, yes, but he got his ideas from someplace else. Now, things change, and people just have to accept it. And I'll take this thing all the way to the Supreme Court in Washington, but I am selling my land to whoever I please, and what they do with it is their business, nobody else's.
Mrs. Gibbs, where were you between 5 and 7 p.m. last night?
I was here at home. I cooked supper and ate at 5:30, watched the 6 o'clock news, and then I worked on my quilt squares until I turned in at 8 o'clock. Well, you can ask my son, Owen Jr. He was here the whole time. We still keep farmers' hours.
Do you know anyone who might want Brett Penance dead?
If this is one of those trick questions, Ms. Farewell, I guess you'll just have to find some other fool to trick. No, I don't know anyone who would kill Brett Penance just because they wanted to build condos.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Gibbs.
Oh, you're welcome.
Your name and occupation?
Amos Johnson. I'm a civil engineer with my own firm. We employ about 11 other engineers.
Mr. Johnson, are you familiar with Brett Penance?
How can I not be?
What do you mean?
Brett Penance accused me of falsifying documents and results related to my hydroengineering project for Frederick Kinsella on the Fossil Cove project. He did it in a public hearing.
Did you?
Of course not. Besides, where's the proof?
Mr. Johnson, what would happen if an engineer had intentionally falsified his or her findings?
They'd lose their license, not to mention their reputation.
Which would be an adequate motive for a murder, wouldn't you say?
It might be for some people if they had falsified the documents. Now, is that all, Miss,
Farewell. Almost. Can you tell me your whereabouts from 5 to 7 p.m. yesterday evening?
I was working at my office until about 5:30. Then I drove around in my car for a while. I've been having personal problems and I needed some time to think.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Johnson. We'll be in touch when we have other questions.
Yes, you're welcome.
Where is the boathouse? Where is the body found?
What is the projected budget of the Fossil Cove project?
I'm afraid 6 hours is up, and I'm going to have to put you on to another case. A woman named Taylor French was murdered. She was a crack investigative reporter with a lot of enemies. A lot of enemies. I hope you have more luck with this one, Detective.